permission to speak freely. I'm going to share with what my observations were from those rounds, okay? I don't know all the answers, but I can tell you that I'm honestly pursuing them as best that I can. I think out of those 10 minutes, I think I observed 2 or 3 times when technique was employed. Everything else that I saw happening was the implementation of principles. The more dangerous things are, the more simple things need to be. Every force multiplier that's added into the mix makes the level of complexity and dimension of processing of information exponentially more difficult. Can you intuit that? Just grappling and dealing with strikes is extremely difficult. Now strikes while you're retaining a weapon, positioning yourself to access it, defending against a knife attack, and you're dealing with submissions and a dangerous surface, and probably multiple attackers. And you have to deal with what the legalities governing the use of force are. I mean, my God. And probably dealing with a wall or a barrier or some other forms of adversity. You may be semi-conscious. You probably have taken a shot. You've been caught off guard. You're in shock. We know that approximately 50% of edge weapon attacks end up on the ground. I mean, there's more I'm not even thinking about right now, right? But that's why we train the way that we do. 50% of edge weapon attacks that end up on the ground, that's a huge percentage. And if you haven't trained to be fluid and adaptive and know how to position yourself and how to employ principles, it's probably not a good situation, is it? What we've found is if we present this as a collection of techniques, as opposed to being principle-based, that is supplemented with certain types of techniques that are optimal for this specific, very niche context, that we are doing ourselves a disadvantage. And while being a high-level sport grappler can be very, in some cases, be very helpful, in other cases it can be very harmful, because the high-level sport grapplers start to deal with cognitive inertia. They're used to feeling certain patterns and following specific pathways for a game of submission and points for position that are not representative of how real violence occurs in many occasions. So their reflexes take over, and now they've put themselves in a position to have their weapon taken away from them, or have put themselves in a position to have a weapon used on them, or maybe even the use of excessive force, depending on what the situation is, right? I know that this room has been exposed to a pretty high level of technique when it comes to knife defense on the ground. And this is a group at the instructor level, but I saw virtually none of it employed. And I never do. Why does everyone have a tendency to default to core principles instead? But what does that tell you about the nature of the context of what you were just experiencing? What's it like? What is it like when you're going a full go, when somebody's on top of you or underneath you and they have a knife and you're carrying a gun? It's ugly. And what else? Describe it. Okay. It's extremely chaotic.
Unpredictable.
Highly unpredictable. Extremely fluid and dynamic. Fishing for a technique that it requires a lot of refinement can really become, and oftentimes is, compromising. We cannot have complexity now. Now, all of you are at the instructor level. are your students. We know what the metric is for dealing competence and how long it takes for myelination to occur. And by the way, it requires at least 20 minutes a day just to maintain that level of competence, to maintain myelination. We already know how quickly things will perish at the neurological level. Skills are highly perishable. So in order to maintain a level of competence within this context, defending edge weapon defense on the ground while you're carrying concealed, how much practice would be required for you to maintain any level of competence if you're dealing with a system that is based on a collection of disjointed and fragmented techniques? How much? How much practice would be required to go through the process of exploration, synaptic pruning, reinforcement, myelination, and then to sustain the myelination, and then to build on more and more techniques on top of it in this type of a environment? What would be required? All day, every day. So all you would be doing for your training would be grappling in this context, defending an edge weapon attack on the ground while you're carrying concealed. There would be no time for you to dedicate it to anything else. And that's at the instructor level. The students below you, like they didn't think about that. How much time do they have to dedicate to training total, let alone to training to one specific discipline within as a subset of this discipline itself? That wouldn't be optimal, would it? If your students come in to do that, and now as they hit the mats versus the knife, you're giving them this collection of fragmented techniques or techniques that are overly complex for this environment. Not feasible, not realistic. It's great if you want to have a collection of techniques and you want to go out and sell seminars and people want to be able to have the cool experience at the seminar, or they want to cherry pick techniques that you have. But when you take a look at the force science, when you take a look at crime statistics, you take a look at subsets and case reports and data sets, combine that with neurocognitive ecological psychology and all of the other disciplines that are involved, you've created a level of complexity that doesn't exist in reality. You've created a cognitive illusion that you sell. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what are the core principles that people can employ immediately, and core principles that they can cultivate with time and build higher and higher levels of competence and efficacy cultivated over time. If I tell you I'm going to teach you how to defend yourself on the ground versus a knife during concealed carry, then that's what I'm going to do. It isn't about serving me and my brand. It's about serving you. It's about teaching you to serve your students. So that's what we're going to do now.